the GALSNGEAR Tequity Talk. I'm Amy DeLouise, your host and moderator today and founder of GALSNGEAR. I'm so happy that you're joining us, whether you're here with us virtually or whether you're watching the recording. We're so happy to have you join our merry band. And before we start, I want to remind everyone, first of all, please follow us on social media. That's where you get all the latest information on what GALSNGEAR is doing, whether we're doing it in person or virtually. So we're very active on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and Instagram. So you can find us in all the places. And also join our YouTube channel, because that's where the replays of these recordings will be. So you can find us on LinkedIn, on YouTube as well. And also I want to note that, especially in our Instagram channel, we've been posting a lot of clips from our student interviews from NAB Show. We had a group of student mentees paired with mentors, one of whom is on with us today, Ann Saul, who's a cinematographer and gaffer. And so we're so grateful to her and the other volunteer mentors who came to the show with us and shepherded these fabulous students through the show experience, as well as interviewing a lot of amazing women and men in media and technology. So you can check out some of those interviews on our Instagram channel. Also want to shout out our Tequity Hub sponsors, especially AJA and Signiant, who have been so supportive of our work on the Hub. So please, if you're interested in joining them, or you have a company that you think would be interested in joining them, you can shoot me a link or any kind of information through all my personal channels, or you can connect with us through our sponsor page on our website. And finally, we're now accepting personal donations, which are tax deductible in the United States anyway. So there's a donate button on our website. We've gotten some really generous donations lately, one of which actually helped support those students with the expenses of coming with us to the production intensive. So we put your money to good use because we're pretty lean and mean. My company supports the overhead for GALSNGEAR, and Dundee Hills Group helps us with our public relations and hosting the Tequity Hub. So your money goes to our programs, which is great. Okay, let's get started. I want to welcome our incredibly knowledgeable speaker, who is a headhunter and headhunter in chief. I'll call her Tine Rask. She has a 25-year career in the tech industry, spanning broadcast media, telecommunications, and ed tech. She has expertise in hiring talent managers, talent from management all the way up to the C-suite, with a special expertise in both sales, marketing, communications, human resources, and strategy positions. But I think a lot of what she's going to say will be relevant for other kinds of jobs. And one reason we invited her is she is a big champion of diversity and inclusion, and a fervent champion of women in tech industries. I actually met her at IBC because we were both on a panel that was contributing ideas to making tech conferences a little more open and more welcoming to people of all genders and backgrounds. So she founded her company, Serena Headhunting, but before that, she made waves at Devio, a telco lead generation agency in Nice, France, as director of operations and sales. And she's previously worked at Viviance New Education and Freecom and Ericsson Mobile. And another thing we like about Tina is her passion for wine. She co-founded Spirits of Wine, which is a luxury provider to yachts on the French Riviera. So I'm already planning a GALSNGEAR field trip, Tina.
Yes.
So welcome, Tina. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. And thank you for this very nice introduction. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you.
So let me start first with the big picture, Tina, and let's talk a little bit about industry trends right now, because there are a lot of changes that have been happening in the industry, not the least of which was COVID, forcing a lot of remote work scenarios, a lot of new positions, a lot of old positions going away, AI is in the mix here, et cetera. So I'm just curious what trends you're seeing across media and entertainment in terms of hiring.
Well, I think that, first of all, I think for the last 2 years, there's been a lot of mergers or acquisitions that had also really influenced the market, which has impacted a lot of job losses or culture shocks where people they want to change. And also it has opened up to a very international market where companies now they are very open. Well, first of all, due to the COVID, but also due to all those mergers, they're open to hire people remote. So this is, of course, fantastic for the companies because the talent pool is getting really large. But it's also for the candidates, it's a lot of competition. There's a lot of competition on competences, on salary, because all these facts are changing from a region or a country to the other. So I would say this has really influenced the industry. And then I think on the broadcast side, it's going a bit down. There are new segments that are growing, like gaming, where maybe the Gen Z are more, well, first of all, they influence a lot, but people are also looking to hire these people. So it also influences on the senior people that are now spending 6 to 12 months sometimes to look for a job. So there's a lot of things that are happening in the industry, I would say, with regard, well, due to all these factors, yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot. And I'm curious a little bit about why companies use a headhunter. And especially because now there's so many, technological ways to connect to people applying for jobs, through Indeed and LinkedIn and all these other things. So why does a company hire somebody like you? What's the process that you do with that company?
Yeah, I think that, well, people, they hire headhunters for managers and above. Below that, normally they don't go through headhunters because it has a certain cost. But it's I would say today the danger of the market is that when people they post a job offer on LinkedIn, you can apply to a job in 3 clicks. So you can basically sit in the train and apply to 4, 7, 10, 15 jobs. And what happens is that the companies, they will have hundreds of applications. And most of the time, there's only 10 or 20% that are actually matching to their requirements. And this is very, very heavy for the companies. And then when you start looking for very specific skills and industry expertise, it's difficult to find people. You can set up advertisements on Indeed, etc., but you will never get the passive candidates. So the passive candidates are those that are already sitting in a position that is having a little eye open on the market, but not necessarily looking. And with the headhunters, you get the both. You get both those open to work and those that are passive and possibly interested. And I think that, yeah, maybe 60% of or 70% of the time when I headhunt people is people that are already sitting in a position. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and to your point about how many applications are coming, even for below management positions. I mean, my company helped a client hire a social media manager.
Mm-hmm.
It was a fairly junior level position, but their Indeed was just swamped, and there was no way they could go through all those applications. So we helped do several rounds of cuts so that they could only look at like the top 8 instead of the top 800 that came in.
But that's
So,
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
And it's
from
very,
the
sorry, yeah, and it's very frustrating for the candidates and the
right,
enterprises because the candidates they never get a personal reply. It's impossible
right,
to get a personal reply,
right.
and for the companies, it's just too much.
It's too much. Yeah. And from the flip side, from the other way around, why is it good to be contacted by a headhunter? Like, why is it valuable to stay in a relationship with a headhunter, even if you don't end up getting that particular job?
Yeah, I have, well, first of all, I spent like half a day per week speaking with candidates that are actually looking for jobs because some candidates, they contact me directly. But it's important to say that the headhunters, they work for the companies. So I will maybe have 3 or 4 positions maximum at once. And so I don't have like recruitment agencies, a lot of positions. Right. But I do take the time to speak with them, and it's good to be in contact, in particular in this industry where we well, most of the time you ask for industry expertise, very specific skills. So I keep them in a little corner. I have a mini database with all the people, and it's very nice to speak with headhunters. It opened doors, and not only one. I always recommend them. Please contact other headhunters that are focused on the industry. It will open you doors to get a new position. And you never know, maybe in 2 years you'll be looking for something, and if you had the right attitude at that time, it would be much easier to get in contact with companies.
Right. So you probably see a lot of resumes. You see a lot of headshots, maybe too. You see a lot of people's LinkedIn, et cetera. Whether or not they're in your market, so to speak, for management and up, I mean, are there some mistakes that you tend to see repeatedly in how candidates are presenting themselves that you could share sort of some top tips of what to avoid, and then we'll talk about what to do?
What to do?
Yeah.
Well, both. Yeah, I think that, well, first of all, there's a new trend is to send mass messages on LinkedIn saying that they're looking for a job.
Yeah.
So that's exactly the same effect as when you do anything else with mass communication. So it does not work. Plus you get first message, second message, third, the other one. So
you're talking about private messages, not even like a public post. You're talking about a private.
Yeah, private message, yeah, on LinkedIn. Yeah. So I do receive a lot of those. But I think that what is really the biggest mistakes is that people, they tend to forget that they are selling themselves. So when you look for a job, you should think of yourself as the product and the company, the buyer. So what kind of extra value can you bring to the company, and what have you done in your previous experiences that shows that you have these skills and competences? And that only goes with figures and achievements. So when people, they write a CV, they tend to list 8-9 lines with everything they've done in the company, etc. And actually, most of it, we don't care. What really is important is that, okay, your major responsibilities, what were they? And numbers on how many people did you manage, or if you increased, your sales targets, with how much did you do it? What did you specifically achieve? Or in marketing, what did you manage to do, and what kind of impact did it have on the company? So I think people, they tend to forget really how can I like promote myself, and to do it not a data sheet, but a very nice paper where you tell about how fantastic you are and what you can bring to the company.
Well, I think that's really apt, Tina, because everybody is thinking from their own vantage point, of course. And I get a lot of people who are applying for jobs either with me or, asking for advice. And they're always saying, this is the job that I want to do. But they're not telling me what you're saying, which is, this is the value that I can bring.
That's it.
It's really flipping it around. I mean, of course, you're thinking about what it is you want to do. But that's not necessarily what you should be telling people. You should be telling them the value to their goals as a company, or if it's a nonprofit, to the organization. How are you going to advance their goals?
Yeah, it's very, very true. And I think also to be able to introduce yourself either in 4 or 5 lines, or when you're doing an interview, to do it in just 2 minutes. It's a very difficult exercise. Is like when you introduce your own company or something, it's difficult to keep it short. But it's when you do that, you're concise, you show what you've done and what you would like to do. And people, they normally they go on this long speech, and they forget that the interview is actually, it's an exchange. It's not you doing your whole life.
Right. Yeah, we practiced at our conference. We practiced in the branding section, your elevator pitch. And I always say it should only be like 2 floors of the elevator, not the whole, high rise. That's too much. It does. If somebody asks a question, then you can always give them more information.
Absolutely, yeah. So that is the second mistake. I would say also that when you start an interview, people, they tend to really to also, because they're nervous most of the time, they tend to speak a lot. So always let the interviewer lead the interview. So there's one question that is ask, you answer, and then you, of course, it has to be some sort of a nice conversation. You should not be something static.
Got it. Got it. So limiting the time of your self intro, remembering that you're the product and the company or organization is the buyer, and sort of pitching value add. Don't be sending a million blasts of messages to people. Anything else that you think people should be focused on, or things they should do, or any kind of new tools that are out there? You know, should you have a video clip of yourself on your LinkedIn? Is that useful, not useful? You know, there's so much of this stuff, and it's all marketing from the perspective of LinkedIn to be
Yes,
specific.
and I think really it's every single time there's like no one size fit, you know. So it all depends on the job you're looking for and what kind of company you're approaching. But I think, yeah, it's like trust your own guts, like do your own research, because today when you go on the internet, on LinkedIn, you know, there are new persons every day that are offering expertise on how to do the right resume, or how to do this and that, and how to do, make it simple. So I like, I mean, you can go on, you know, on Canva, do very nice CVs with pictures and all that. It's all looks nice, but sometimes it's very difficult to analyze. So most recruiters, they scan the CV in a few minutes, and if they see, you know, the major headlines that are interesting, they will try to read it in details. So just make it really clear. So 3-4 lines with who you are, what you've done, and what you can bring, what you're looking for. And then every single experience is 4-5 lines about your responsibilities, your main task, and then 2 or 3 achievements for each role. And that makes it very, if you keep the same frame, it's very, very easy to analyze, and it goes out. Yeah. So don't try to do anything sophisticated. I think it's, even if it's 2 or 3 pages, it's fine.
Well, and I have to say, I have like a cute factor alert that I have when I get things that are too cute, like too many colors, too many flowers, too many, I have the same rule about wine, so maybe you'll relate to this. But sometimes I send my husband to the store for wine, and he's not as good of a wine picker as I am. And so I say, don't do like anything with a cute name or a shiny label with too many cute things on it. Like, really, the good wines don't need to do that.
Yes, exactly. And sometimes you have the page set up with a lot of lines on the left, and then your resume on the right, and it's very confusing to read. And then you have the red colors, the blue graphs, whatever. It's very, very confusing. Actually, there's nothing better than doing it very simple with text. And it's not necessary. I think really it's today to put a photo is not necessary on a CV. Obviously, you do it on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and I think it can go against you. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So,
but on LinkedIn, I think it's very, for the LinkedIn profile, the LinkedIn profile is the first thing that the headhunter will see, because we all headhunt on LinkedIn.
Right.
So LinkedIn, the profile picture has to be pro, and not, you know, not you drinking wine or whatever at a wedding.
Right.
It has to show something professional. And then there's the title. I mean, you can always put something in the title that shows what you really do, and it is not necessarily your job title, because sometimes companies today, they give, you know, strange job titles to something. It doesn't really reflect what you're doing. So write what you're doing, what you're specialist, expert in this and that, and eventually you can always add a line looking for this. And I would say anyone in marketing or sales something, that the background on LinkedIn, if it's just a standard template, it does not show a lot of creativity. So something personalized, nice, doesn't really necessarily have to be corporate, but put something up that attracts the eye. Yeah.
I think also it's really important to do bullet points. I'm a big bullet point fan. I started my career out doing copywriting for a PR firm, and we would always have like headlines for headline readers, bullet points for bullet point readers. If somebody really wants to get into the weeds, there's a little more detail, but so somebody can just scan really quickly and get the big picture right away. Does that sound like a good idea to you for a
Absolutely. Yeah. It's I think, yeah, as I said, I mean, one line about the company, and it's important as well because we don't know all companies in the world. So just 1-2 phrases about the company, what is it doing, how many people, it gives immediately an idea of, okay, what kind of environment have you been working in? And then, as you say, the bullets, 4 or 5 bullets, what you've been doing. And then at the end, you can add 1 or 2 achievements to show where you really succeeded. And then, yeah, and I insist on it, figures tells everything more than phrases.
Right. Does anybody have a question for Tina? Because I have a bunch more of my own, but I would love for people to chime in with questions. I know there's a few people here who might want to ask questions. You can ask them generically, so we don't know that you're looking for a job or thinking about looking for a job. But I think it's really important to have a pro here who you can ask questions and not just rely on my questions. So if you have questions, throw them in the chat. I'll keep my eye on it. I'd love to have somebody raise their hand, and we're a small enough group, you can chime in, or you can just pop it in the chat. So one question I have is, you're working with people on the management side, and a lot of times they started out in technical roles, right? We interviewed a lot of them on our Gals and Gear various channels, and they, maybe they started out as an engineer and now they're in, a CMO, or they started out as an editor and now they're managing all post-production workflow for a big company. And so they didn't necessarily start out with those sort of client-facing jobs, or even jobs that have like large teams, with, I don't know, dozens of people working for them, but now they do. So where are we with soft skills, and do they matter? And how can job applicants be sure that they're also positioning, highlighting those, what we call the soft skills?
Yes. I think that soft skills on the CV is difficult to show. I mean, you can include a few phrases here and there, and in particular in the small summary you do about yourself, by adding, a few personal things like passionate about this, or it's possible to show that you, what kind of person you is, and then also to talk on, not only to talk about you. If you say I, but if you said we did it,
Yeah.
It's another, we managed to obtain this with the team or whatever. But for the soft skills in interviews, I think I spent 70% of my time on soft skills. So once I have an interview, it's because on the CV I see the skills are there. Of course, they have to be verified. But otherwise, I think the soft skills are extremely important. So the soft skills is a lot of things. It's, and your capacity to communicate, to be critical thinking, problem solver, how you work with the other teams, and how you're doing leadership. And all this will affect the performance of the company, obviously. Right. So and each time it would be different for a company. I think everybody has their own company culture and their values and how they see things. So I think that whenever I have a new client, the first thing I'm trying to understand, okay, so how is it working? What kind of team members are around? Who would they work with? What are they like? Is it a flat hierarchy, or is it different? And all the soft skills, they come in there, where you have to see, ask people, where did you once struggle in your work? Did you have a stressful time with your team, or how did you handle all these things? And I think it's soft skills is a sort of a mindset, and we all have different mindsets, and And of course, you can also improve these with
Right.
either training or not.
No, yeah, I think it's the most important, really. I mean, I hire lots of people, obviously, in lots of technical jobs for my production company, and the most important thing is problem solving, working with the team, being proactive to solve problems, not waiting to be asked to do something. You know, these are all the key skills, because
Exactly.
everybody can learn to do, you know, Premiere Pro better or whatever the technical thing is. But those things, if you don't know them, it makes it very hard for the rest of the team to work with you. So I have to
It will never
focus
work.
on
Yeah.
those. I have a question from Danilda. So I don't know if you can unmute yourself. I'm gonna turn off my camera for a second while you ask, because there's somebody at my door, because that's how it works in the Zoom world. And I think it's a workman. So ask a very long question, Danilda, and I'll be right
Okay, I
back.
have a couple I can ask.
Okay, good.
Hi, Tina. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So I remember at a couple of our events, we have a lot of women that are interested in transitioning from one role to another, or from one vertical of the industry to a different vertical, you know, where maybe they were in corporate and now they want to go nonprofit. And so their skills are transferable, but they may not have the metrics to show what's happening in, you know, have the metrics to show necessarily for the role that they're going for. How do you recommend for them to shine and to shop themselves around?
So you
Or
want
sell
to move,
themselves?
if you move from one vertical to the other, or
Yeah, like someone going from like nonprofit wanting to go into corporate, or someone going from entrepreneurship to education, but they're still within the production realm or within the marketing side of things or sales. Like how do you recommend that they promote themselves?
yeah, I think that I mean, it's not all companies that are close to I mean, they're closing the doors for this.
Mhm.
And most of it, I think, is on the mindset. So it's on the CV or on LinkedIn, it's important then really to work on the summary, because this is where the little thing will change. That you show that you know you have the competences for this role, but that you don't
Mhm.
have any experience, and you will find either some similarities, or that there's there will always be some strengths that you had that you can bring to the company
Mhm.
that they're not used to. Like
Yeah.
I had a candidate that was only working in really B2B, and was going to a company that was more like an association or something,
Mhm.
and his arguments was that he could bring something more business minded and maybe bring them up more that they were today.
I hear you.
So you see that
Almost like
always.
focusing on that difference being the strength, right?
Exactly, yeah.
I like that. Yeah, that's good. I had one other question. These are things that pop up all the time. I know I put one in the chat, and that was about job applications. I hear this a lot too. There's so many people, and even you said it, there's like hundreds of applicants for each role online, and it's overwhelming for the companies and for the applicants. So I remember years ago, you used to want to follow up and, you know, make a phone call to the HR department, or, you know, make your presence known.
Yes.
Is that recommended today?
That's a hard question, because it depends a bit of the size of the companies. You know, if it's a
Yeah,
very big
that's true.
company,
Yeah.
it's just going to be a trouble, or
Yeah, you
uh,
wouldn't call Disney and say, hey, I submitted an
yeah.
application.
Right. Well,
No, and
but you know, just jumping in on that, Danilda, and Tina, you tell me if you agree with this. If you gave a heads up to somebody at the company, so maybe you know someone at Disney,
Mhm.
and they said, oh yeah, you should definitely apply for that job. Usually they'll say, let me know when you apply, and then it's okay. And then you say to that person, okay, I just submitted my resume, because then they can tip off their colleague to look for that. But I'm
That's
not
a
sure I
good
would do it
idea.
just out of the blue if you're just one.
no,
Does that,
One in a
what do you
million,
think,
right?
Tina?
no, I totally agree. Yeah, it's always good to have some kind of contact, or on LinkedIn. I mean, you can discreetly try to like some of the post of this person. It's a long-term process. I mean, it's
Mhm.
not necessarily because you're applying for a specific job, but maybe you want to really join this company.
Mhm.
You know, start connecting with people, make comments, and that will maybe sometimes it makes a difference.
Yeah.
Um,
I
if you,
love that, because I have a lot of students that are maybe in their first or second year of their career who have graduated, and they come back asking for, you know, some of these tips, and, you know, how do I get myself into such and such company? I have a couple years under my belt. How do I level up in that sense? And I think Sarah has a question in the chat about early career professionals and approaches that you recommend for freelancers versus people seeking more permanent roles. Any advice for them?
Freelancers, yeah. Okay,
challenging.
so yeah, it's two, it's different approach. So headhunters, yeah, we rarely work with freelancers.
Right. But a lot of careers now are on contract, even if they're long-term contracts, Tina. There's a lot in our world that is going to contract.
But
what about temp agencies for freelancers? Is that a good way to kind of jump into the field? Or
yeah, I think that because the headhunters, I mean, we are expensive. You know, we take a certain percentage, so that goes between 15 and 30% of the annual salary. So that's why I'm saying that even for, you know, a 1 year job or 1 year and a half, it's too big an investment for them to use a headhunter.
Right. I could make a suggestion on that one, and then we have a couple of other questions. One suggestion for freelance is, you know, and this goes back to the LinkedIn where you said follow somebody and, you know, make comments and stuff. I mean, I get a bazillion DMs with people looking for jobs with me, and I always look to see when they started following me. And if it was 5 seconds before they sent me the DM, then I don't answer them. If they've actually been following me for like a year or 6 months and they've commented on some of my posts, I'm much more likely to take them seriously and to look at the resume and at least give them a suggestion if I can't use them. So, you know, I think that social media gives you an opportunity, but you have to take advantage of the fact it's not just, you know, so that you can send somebody a private message. It's like, do you know what it is that they do for a living? Do you know what kinds of jobs they're hiring for? What kind of thing that their company even does? I have people applying for things that aren't relevant at all to what I do. So I think that's one way freelancers can really take advantage of all the information available about people who are hiring. The other thing is, I've hired, in fact, I think Lauren, I found you through Nat Geo Happy through the Facebook page. I'm pretty sure that's how I found you.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so there's a lot of Facebook pages. For some reason, Facebook is really good for this. It's just better interactively than Instagram for this particular thing. So there's I need an editor. There's 5 or 6 different I need an editor forums. There's I need a producer. I need a production assistant. Those are great places to find work, especially if you know the person who's hosting the forum, because I know like the woman who runs I need an editor for the DC, Maryland, Virginia region, which may not be relevant anymore with remote work, but it used to be relevant. She's pretty tight about who she lets in. They have to show her a resume. They have to have legit qualifications. She doesn't allow people to just randomly post, I need a job. There's 2 times a year when she has an open forum for people to post their resumes or their links to work that they've been doing. But the rest of the time, it's only for job postings. So you can look for those forums and they can be very, very helpful.
Yeah, the job forums are very good, especially when you're in the beginning of your career, I think. And to go back to the LinkedIn, I think it's very important to remind that LinkedIn is a networking platform. So it is networking. So it's nice when you do post, you comment and post, to be active, because this is not enough just to repost things. To have like your own opinion about things will make you more interesting. And it is really like, I mean, if you want to lose 5 kilos, or sorry, you're in the States, so
that's okay.
5 pounds, or I don't know how much weight you want to lose. It is not because that you go and pay your subscription at the gym that you're going to lose it immediately, right? It's going to take a long time. And it's exactly the same for LinkedIn. You can't use LinkedIn just to look for a job. It is a networking platform. And so you network, and that's the way you find new contacts and maybe also a new job.
Right. That's a great analogy. I'm going to use that analogy. the gym membership. It doesn't matter if you just buy the gym membership, but you never go. It's not going to do you any good. Two quick follow-up questions that we have. One person asked, so to clarify about saying we instead of I, because sometimes she says that's not accurate because she did the thing herself without a we. So how do you frame that so you don't sound like you're being really all about yourself, but also take credit for what you do, which a lot of times women frankly don't do.
Oh yeah, that's correct. Yeah. No, of course. I mean, there are things where you can say I. I think it's just it's important to say that when you've been working within teams that you also include this we sometimes. And you definitely have to show, I mean, be proud of what you've done. I mean, so many people are, and it's true, it's there's a lot of women that are like this. They're very discreet and they don't want to too much show off, but no, you have to show what you did and you have to be proud of it, you assume it and show that you're fantastic, and that's how you're going to find a job.
Right. I mean, one way to answer that question, Anya, would be I did this so that the team could do that. I contributed X so that our client could accomplish Z, so that you're relating it to a goal that was achieved by a bigger group of people, but you can still tell what you specifically did. And so I don't know if that helps, but that might be one way to frame it.
Yes, it could be like I set up the strategy to do this and that, and then the team managed to reach the target or to reach over the target.
Right. Somebody also asked about the CV and should it still be targeting one page?
No, so no. And well, it depends. I mean, the older you get, it's impossible to get it on one page.
Right. Right. So, yeah, I would definitely say it has a lot to do with experience. When I get a resume from someone who's 25 and is 3 pages long, that's kind of a turn off to me. Like, I know you worked on a bazillion things, but you're still a starter in the industry, so I don't need to see every single show you ever worked on. A page is plenty to give me the highlights.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, but
if you're mid-career later, then you have more to say about maybe different jobs, right? Different tasks, Tina?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, so yeah, the younger people looking for a job, one page is fine. As you said, you don't tell, all the things that you did in the summer holidays or whatever. That doesn't really make any sense. But once you get a long career, 20 years or 30 years or something, I've seen people trying to put it in one page. So you get like 8, so you can't read it anymore, or it's totally compacted, so there's like no spaces and you miss half of it, and it's horrible. So I'm really open. I'm not afraid when I see a CV that's 2 pages or maybe 2 pages and a half. It's really fine for me. At least I have all the information, and you have the big characters, and you can very easily. So no, I think it's this for me. There's no more one page.
Right. Well, one question I want to ask you is also about equity, because we talk a lot about what we call tequity in this forum. And I'm just curious what you're seeing in terms of changes or lack of changes in women, people of color, people with disabilities, anyone who has not always been part of the mainstream, so-called mainstream, in hiring for leadership roles, especially in media and entertainment. Are you seeing any changes there?
Well, and so I can actually compare a bit to the telco industry because I'm specialized in both. I think women are more likely now to get managing and C-level positions in the broadcast industries and entertainment than compared to the telco industry that is still very old school. And then it will depend, of course, on the positions. So on my side, I'm really working on the sales, marketing, and communication, and HR. Well, obviously, there's a lot of women in this, but before on the sales side, it was majorly men. I started my career only working with men. It's not very funny always to be the only one. But now I really feel that it's going on now. I even have clients saying we would like a woman.
Mhm.
We
Which
really
I
would like
think
a woman,
legally
but
in
we are
some
of course
countries they're
open to
not
both.
supposed to say, but yeah.
Yeah,
One thing I'm hearing a lot though, especially on some forums that I'm on in industry forums, private forums, people are saying they're feeling a lot of ageism. And the people who are posting that are not even my age. They're like in their 40s and they're saying like, I'm trying to get a job with a software company in the industry and I'm just not, they're just ignoring me because of my age. I'm twice as old as the person hiring me or what have you. So I'm just curious, are you seeing more ageism? Because of course people have longer careers now. I think about my grandfather retired at 55 and died at 72, and my father retired at 65 and died at 80. And, now people are expected to work into their late 70s if they want to.
absolutely.
And yet we're seeing people sort of think that they're done by their 40s.
No, it's very true. Yeah. And I actually turned 50 last week, and I did not want to turn 50. But I decided to say that 50 today is the new 30s. Because as you just said, it's not at all as when our grandparents, they were 50. We are far away from that. I mean, we're much more healthy. We're living longer. We're ready to work, and we know that we still have to work maybe 15 years or more. So, but there's clearly still this stigmatization about people that are getting older. For me, it's not in the 40s. I've never seen that. But it's more for the people that are 50 and plus, where it's getting tough. I mean, they do still find positions, but they're staying on the job market for a very long time.
Right. Well, I
Um,
think some of the issue for some of these as I'm reading them is that there's usually an intermediate person who's qualifying applications, and that person's probably in their early 30s. So that person seems really old to them, even if they're not the one making the final decisions.
yes.
I've had some issues with that myself, even for freelance stuff. So
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I mean, you have recruitment, internal recruitment teams in companies, and it's very often young people, and for them speaking to like a dinosaurus, that's 50 is like, God. But I think what is mostly the industry is that, and I mean, in the entertainment and media is like everything is changing so fast. So the only way to really to remain on the market is just to be updated all the time. So
right. Well, and I think some of this is what we're working on with Gals and Gear, which is this belonging piece of DEIB, because belonging is feeling like you speak the same language as other people, and age is one part of that, but it's also background, it's also gender, it's also whatever tribe you feel like you belong to. If that tribe is not represented at that company, then you may not feel like you belong no matter what age you are.
yes.
And so really the only common denominator is the language, the technical language that we speak, that we're, as you say, up to date. So to that point, somebody asks, are certificates or certifications useful at all in showing that you are up to date on the latest and greatest? Are those things that are looked at on resumes?
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, it shows, as I said, it's always important to kind of show your personality through the CV or on LinkedIn, and that will show if you are still very old school or you're updated, and so it could make a difference. But I think actually, I mean, it's not really the candidate is a problem, is more the enterprises, the companies that is a problem, because if they haven't worked on the diversity and it would take them a long time to get to this perfect balance where you have different ages, and that is really the perfect balance, to have all kind of ages. But if you just young startup company and only employing young people and never, so that's why it's blocking. So companies, they say that we are standing for diversity and inclusion, etc., but it's not enough to put it on the company page if they're not working at from the start. doesn't work.
Well, and actually, we're getting a lot of calls at Gals and Gear for companies where a lot of the people are actually aging out, like, they're retiring. They've got a lot of boomers, and they never really brought in enough younger people. So they kind of have a gap. They have some people with very, very new skills and people with a lot of experience, and absolutely nobody in the middle to kind of move into those jobs because they were not actually bringing in new people. Everybody was hiring their friends and people their same age and same cohort. So this is actually a big problem with a lot of companies.
It is. Yeah. I'm hiring currently for a company where they all getting close to the retirement age, and it's a huge problem for them.
Right. Right.
Because how are they going to hand over? So now they have to like employ urgently and to get different kind of ages.
Right. Well, and this is the event that I was just filming yesterday with a couple of people who are on here, was a fundraiser for scholarships for students in STEM fields. And all these companies that are related to the chemical industry and need STEM people who are chemists, who are, engineers, who are all kinds of different STEM related fields. They basically funded these scholarships because they weren't seeing those people in the pool of applicants for jobs. And they've now funded 750 students to go through STEM programs with a lot of side training and other things to help them on board with careers at these companies. Like about 40 companies have gotten together to do it. It's an interesting model that we're gonna talk to them about because I think it's really needed.
Very interesting, yeah.
And these are all very diverse students who are going to HBCUs, which are the historically Black colleges and universities in the United States. And they're really high quality students. I got to interview some of them. They're amazing. So
Amy, I was thinking about the interviews, we shot yesterday. We heard over and over that, diversity in the work force helps with diversity in the ideas and the creativity and the, output. And that's the same thing with age, it's the age diversity helps with that. Because there's so much experience you have as you get older with just, life experiences, which affect everyday work, and how to get through projects without, flipping out, becoming overwhelmed or, anything.
Right.
It's all related, but having that older work, staff that can help the younger staff stay level-headed and lead them through or give them advice or, and even, workforces, they're, we're moving away from the family term, but they're friends in good workforce areas, and being able to help young workers move through their lives, and give them advice and stuff in life and stuff too is always important to have, since you spend your whole day at work and stuff in some cases. So that's like a huge bonus for companies to think about, is that extra experience that's there that it may not be related directly to the numbers they're putting into
well, and just life experience generally, right? Because a lot of the students that we interviewed come from a lot of different backgrounds and different knowledge spaces of their own and different communities and lived experiences, and those all contribute to what's gonna, one student